Let's talk about the coffee.
All right.
Coffee is made, not you famous, but the brand famous. I mean, people talk about bulletproof coffee now. You know, I drink it every day. And so it's a great way for people to kind of be introduced to the whole concept of biohacking, or the whole idea that, you know, you can actually change what you consume and it might change your mind frame. It also makes you a lightning rod for people that say, okay, Dave, what's up with these mycotoxins? Some people say they're there, some people say they don't. And I ask a lot of people in this chair, quite honestly, how they deal with sometimes the hate they get from the fame they get. And you know, you're no stranger to that, you know, whether it's the Rogan people or the other people, and they're all like this or that, and people are posting these studies and these studies. I always just want to kind of give you a chance to answer that. When people ask, we don't think the mycotoxins are there, you say they're there. What do you say?
I am profoundly grateful for that level of criticism. I was inspired to spend almost 2 years of my life and hundreds of thousands of dollars out of pocket to make Moldy, the documentary, to document what mold toxins do to people. I interviewed a dozen people whose lives were completely wrecked by this, and about a dozen physicians, including 2 really influential physicians, as well as some less known ones who are total experts in mycotoxins. And anyone who says mycotoxins don't matter, who watches Moldy, is not someone that I'm that interested in talking about. They could say, I have questions, and we can do that. But if you can look at that body of evidence, or the 1,200 studies about one toxin that's present in coffee, the most dangerous one called ochratoxin A, or sorry, not the most dangerous, but the most common one in coffee. Or you can look at the 34 studies on my website about the presence of this in coffee. Or you can look at the evidence that most world governments have standards for this because it's so dangerous, and the EU in the last 10 years tightened their standards because it's worth doing for their population, but the US has no standards. Or you could look at the video of one of the advisors to Bulletproof, Mark Inman, former head of the Specialty Coffee Association, saying, I was in the room in 2008 when the Japanese trade minister rejected 1,000 containers of coffee that was too moldy for Japanese people to drink. And I said, Mark, what happened to the coffee? He said, they sent it to America. So you can face all of that and still cross your arms and say, there's no mold in coffee. There isn't a conversation to be had there.
Do you think in 20 years from now we're going to look back on mold the same way we look back on doctors who were smoking Lucky Strikes, and the same way we looked at pregnant mothers having martinis, and we're going to hit ourselves in the heads and say, what the hell are we thinking?
Absolutely, we're going to do that. And there are major connections between mold and fertility. And I see this all the time because people who are looking for solutions come to Bulletproof and they're like, could this really be? And then they watch the documentary and they go, wait, there's a problem here. And environmental mold is more dangerous. It's more imminently dangerous than mold in your food. However, if you've been exposed to environmental mold in your food makes you just feel crappy. And if you eat low levels of these toxins in your food all the time, it actually causes damage to your body. And the toxin that's present in coffee is also present in a lot of grain, as well as some other toxins. This is that ochratoxin A. It's present in chocolate. And the quality of your chocolate, quality of your coffee really do matter. And one thing that almost everyone who drinks coffee has experienced, sometimes you drink coffee, and a half hour later, you have to run to the restroom and you have to pee, right? And there's not that much pee, but you just had to pee, right? Your bladder wasn't full. Other times you drink coffee and you don't have to pee. Well, here's why. Ochratoxin A, this thing that critics say doesn't exist magically in coffee, it is a strong toxin for your kidneys and your bladder. So what your body does in response to drinking this stuff, and it's effective at parts per billion, you drink it, and then the body says, oh my God, this is an emergency. There is something here that is damaging the system. So it pulls water out of your blood plasma. It dehydrates you. It puts as much water as it can get into the kidneys, into the bladder to dilute the toxin. And then it sends the signal, pee, you got to pee right now, right now. And you go in there, you're like, I really didn't have to pee. What's going on here? That is our natural body's response to drinking something that is bad for our bladder and our kidneys. You may also feel tired and cranky. And the reason for that is that it takes extra glucose in order to help metabolize these toxins and move them along. Because this is a life-threatening emergency to the meat in your body, even though you don't have any idea it's happening cognitively, your body then calls on blood sugar. Well, where's it going to get it? Out of your blood. what part of your brain consumes what part of your body consumes 60% of the glucose? Oh, your brain does. So now you got a little bit of hypoglycemia, you got a little bit cranky, a little bit irritated, and you crashed 2 hours after you drank your coffee. So then you want another cup of coffee. In fact, you want to put sugar in it for some reason. Well, people don't put sugar in their Bulletproof coffee. It doesn't need it. And they drink only 1 cup instead of the coffee yo-yo. Right? This is one of the reasons that Bulletproof coffee does what it does. And the brain octane oil that's in it is another thing, and the butter is another thing. And there's some things where I'm pretty darn sure, and some things where it's a hypothesis based on a study, but we haven't studied it specifically. And this is written up in the Bulletproof diet. So when a critic wants to come up and say, Dave, I actually don't think that it's this thing in coffee, and the mechanism is probably different. That's not a critic. That is an amazing scientific conversation, and I am totally willing to be wrong. When someone stands up and says, there is no such thing as mold in coffee, this is clearly a scam, at that point, this is like a dogmatic religious discussion. It has nothing to do with scientific discourse. So there isn't really much to be said there, other than, well, I think I've published enough data on this, and I can see it in the lab tests that I run. And so I'm just not worried about that. Everyone doesn't have to like what I'm doing, but the number of people who've emailed me and said, Dave, I couldn't drink coffee for X number of years, some people for 18 years. And then I tried your coffee and it doesn't cause the jitter and the crankiness that I used to experience. I feel different on this. We also ran a study in the workup for the Bulletproof diet, and I published the results of the study. There was a statistically significant difference in cognitive performance, in executive function, of people drinking black mold-tested Bulletproof coffee beans versus black beans from the corner coffee shop. So we had there were 54 people entered the study, and they went out to different, basically the local coffee house and bought coffee, and we, for 6 weeks, ran a comparative analysis. Twice a day they ran cognitive batteries of how they're doing, and you know what, there was a difference. Black coffee versus black coffee, and butter Bulletproof coffee versus butter other coffee. So it turns out that there's some evidence that this works. Is there a 100% guarantee that it works for everyone? No. Is there a reasonable mechanism for action? Yes, and mold toxins are one of the major ones. So at that point, like, I'm happy to have a detailed conversation, but when the conversation starts with F you, Asprey, that's not a conversation. That's actually an opportunity to hit ban. And I do that frequently to people who want to troll.
Sounds like you've moved on. It sounds like that's a conversation you were having more even a year or two ago. It sounds like
yeah, it actually really rattled me for a while. I'm like, how could people have this level of what's the word for it? Just, I don't want to call it distrust, because it's not even about being trustful, just the level of anger over something that, okay, there's 34 studies on the website. And I don't get it. And some of it appeared to be financially motivated. Some of it was just kind of bullying behavior, like, you know,
some of it just a symptom of you becoming more popular.
I don't know what it is, but I'm over it, right. And I'm happy to have these conversations with people. I'm funding more research right now, and you know, I'm going to keep saying how important this problem is, because mold contributes to autism. Mold contributes to cognitive decline as you get older. It contributes to rheumatoid arthritis. There's 7 kinds of autoimmunity that's triggered, sometimes over the course of 10 or 20 years in people, by breathing or eating toxic mold. There is pretty good evidence that toxic mold contributed to my father's heart attack. And these things matter. So yeah, I'll keep doing what I do.
To watch the rest of this fascinating interview, click on the link below and go to londonrealacademy.com. There you can sign in with your social media login and watch the rest of the episode for free, along with all of our episodes on London Real, my webinars, and all of our premium content, all located over at londonrealacademy.com. So click on the link below, you'll be directed there, and you can watch the rest of this fascinating interview, and I'll see you there.